as said, my name is Michael Larsen, and we are going to be talking a little bit about training the next generation. And this is specific to developing the SummerQAmp QAMP curriculum. Please forgive me, I did not name it. A little bit of I got to set the tone for this just a little bit here. This is a interesting kind of talk for me. And one thing, it's a track talk in the sense that you all are here and you're interested in hearing the topic. It also has a little bit of another dimension to it in the sense that this is an initiative, this is a project that AST took on, and specifically the Education Special Interest Group took on to actually make this happen. So part of me feels like I'm giving a shareholders report. And in a way, that's exactly what I'm doing. And so the slides that I have are a little bit information heavy. They're that way for a reason. You know, I'd prefer you listen to me, but you can... Thank you. Yes, we don't need to have that. Thank you very much. Okay. Anyway, that's the basics for this, and let's just get started. I have tried to make our clicker work. It's not, so I'll be doing a little bit of this bobbing back and forth to those watching online. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, a little bit of my bona fides, if you don't mind. My name is, again, Michael Larsen. I'm a senior software quality engineer at Social Text, which is a company that maybe some of you are familiar with. We do a lot of stuff with wiki software. I like to tell people that Social Text was social before social was cool. I'm a black belt in the Miyagi-Do School of Software Testing. I am the chair of the Education Special Interest Group for the Association for Software Testing. I am a founder, I shouldn't say the founder, I'm a founder and a frequent facilitator for Weekend Testing Americas. I do write a blog prolifically, I guess you could say, called TestHead. It's mkltesthead.com, and you can see me on Twitter there. Some of you, I'm guessing, already do, and you're probably already sick of seeing stuff from me, so with that out of the way. You can also add that I am the curator and facilitator for the SummerQAmp curriculum development. Now, that is not my gig. I'm not the one who did this. So everything that I'm going to say, if you ever hear me say I, it is not me specifically. There's a lot of people who put a lot of time and energy into making this happen, and it's a group effort. And the Education SIG were the ones that did the most for this, since they were the ones I called on directly and said, please help me do this. And these are some very specific thanks. I'm not going to read them all out here, but you can take a look at them, and that's not everybody. But these are people who helped us make sure that this thing actually got off the ground and that I could talk to you about it today. All right, so what is SummerQAmp? It is an initiative that is aimed at training young people so that they can do quality assurance jobs. That's it. And I put in here, in other words, what they're actually trying to do is they're trying to train people to be software testers. I'm saying that for a fact, and I'm saying it deliberately. SummerQAmp was developed by the 5 men that you see in this picture here: Anish Chopra, John Bon Jovi, Kevin Haggart, and Steve Martaki, and, oh shoot, did I miss a name? I'm sorry, I will have to protect those there. 4 men there. I'm missing a name. Darn it. I hate when that happens. What is it again? Developed as a commitment to the White House's Summer Jobs Plus program. The idea behind it is that it is focusing specifically on quality assurance jobs. Businesses work with the government to offer a path toward employment for low-income youth. And when they first proposed this initiative, which was in early 2012, they wanted to provide 1,000 plus QA internships. I'm setting a story here, so some of these graphics might look, wait, why is he including that? Well, these are kind of fateful, and they're a little bit of our prologue. So when SummerQAmp was officially announced, there were a number of articles written, and Twitter kind of blew up on it. And so when Twitter blew up with a lot of this information, I was curious. I had to go take a look at it, especially when I saw a tweet asking what John Bon Jovi and quality assurance had in common. I had to go find out. And when I did so, I had a chance to read some of the ideas that they offered, and I'll admit that the initiative seemed very interesting. I actually thought a lot of their goals were very admirable. I felt they were in line with a lot of the things that we believe, and we want to encourage people to get involved in creating technical jobs and have an opportunity to advance in them. But there was one comment that, for me, just kind of stuck me weird, and I'm going to let you see it for yourselves. To paraphrase, by introducing QA to youths, the program is hoping to promote the job as a possible career path, but perhaps more importantly, Martaki and others see QA as a pathway to a bigger job in software development, kind of a gateway drug for programming. And by the way, the asterisk up there, I'm sorry, I had to. You can shoot me later for the earworm that's going through your head right now. If you weren't born before, like if you were born after 1994, you probably have no idea what song we're talking about. Which meant I had to reply. Now, I'm not going to ask you to read this, it's small print, but I'm putting it up here as a point of fact because this very message changed my life and changed the trajectory of some of the stuff that we in AST were doing. Summarize. Basically, I said, I'm torn because I really like what you're suggesting, but why are we looking at testing as a gateway to something else? If you want to encourage people to program, encourage them to program and let them take on programming internships. If you want to encourage people to test, teach them the principles of software testing. Programming is perfectly wonderful in that role, but let's focus on them being good testers. Now, if they decide later on they want to go be programmers, fantastic. But let's not sell testing short in this process. I've been doing testing for 20 plus years. I happen to really like my career. I think there's quite a few people who probably feel the same way. It's a rewarding career in its own right. Let's not sell it short and say that it's a stepping stone to something else. And also, I made the mention at the bottom, by the way, a number of us who are software testers, we program. I just thought that message would be the end of it. Waiting for comedic effect. Okay, thank you. Thank you for indulging me there. Kevin Haggart, who is one of the top 4 that were part of this program, reached out to me directly, and he agreed with my statement. He said, I am the director for quality assurance, and yes, I'm a lifetime tester, and that's what I have been doing my entire career. And I agree with you. I think it is exactly what we want to be able to encourage people to do. I would love to encourage testing as a career path in its own right and for its own virtue. But how do we do that? There's a lot of competing initiatives out there. There's a lot of competing information. There's a lot of different training-ish options, some of which are formal, some of which are scattered. But we didn't really come to a conclusion as to what could be a good approach for this group in these circumstances, in this context. And so they asked if AST and the group that is SummerQAmp would collaborate on a core learning plan. I actually thought it would be a cool project for the Education SIG to take on, and so I said, sure, let's see what we can do with it. I initially considered just teaching them BBST, and before anybody looks at me and starts making strange faces at me, I shot it down within about 45 seconds. Show of hands, how many people have participated in or have been, how many here have completed a course in the BBST program? How many people agree that it would be a really good training opportunity for 16-year-olds? For those in the audience, I am scanning and there is not a single hand raised. Thank you. As I said, I think it's great for professionals with a foundation in computer science and software testing, but it's a beast for first-timers. And frankly, I've seen people who've come in who were making career changes and they really struggled with it. And that was the biggest reason why I said, I can't picture us using this as it is for making a program for 16 to 24-year-olds who are just being introduced to the ideas. But what can we teach? I wanted to go with a greatly simplified, and when I say simplified, I mean streamlined approach. I didn't mean let's dumb it all down and speak in monosyllabic words. I meant I wanted it very, very focused. I wanted to tie theoretical concepts to what they could actually do, and so that they could actually say, oh, hey, That's what that is. Cool. Keep it simple, make it fun. I definitely didn't want to overload them with too many details. We had 4 weeks. That was the target program, be able to teach them as much as we could in 4 weeks. And I really wanted to get away from any type of standardized test or rote answers that they had to regurgitate back. This is just a personal thing for me, and I discussed it with a number of people, and that opinion kind of won out. We decided that we just wanted to try to really get them to experience the concepts, talk about them, discuss them with each other, be able to see if they could internalize them, and learn them at a level that you can't. You just say, check mark C, that's correct, move on. It was going to be supplemented by other work and other partners that were going to be involved in this. So there was going to be an emphasis on programming. There was going to be an emphasis on tools and the actual companies that were going to be offering the internships. We're going to step up and offer additional training to this. So that narrowed our scope, really. It was what can we offer and what can we put together so that we can teach about directly software testing in as small a focus as possible as a first-time primer. So we opened up this to the discussion forums on the AST EdSig forum. Many of you participated. I see actual contributors in this room. And this is one of the forums that is open to everybody. And you can see them and participate and post as long as you've got a username to get on them. And we partnered with when I say we, SummerQAmp, partnered with they use ck12.org as the delivery option to put together the actual content. And so that's what we were developing the materials so that they could be presented. And we put together 3 modules for the first year and for the pilot of this project, which was what is testing, what is context, and a module about how the web works. The first thing we wanted to do with what is testing is we didn't want to say, here's a big description of what software testing is. I reversed the process. James Lindsay was kind enough to actually give us access to and let us use his black box machines, applications, and the very first thing that I had them do when they opened it up is say, go here. Click around, look around. See what you can find, see what you can discover, look to see if there's any information on the screen. Find out what this machine does, or to the best of your ability, what you think it does. When you're finished, write down your answer and move on. From there, then, we started talking about basic ideas about software testing, what it means to do software testing, definitions, at least the way that we view it, how you can ask effective versus not effective questions, the ability to be able to go through and look at how to solve problems, how to approach people to show that you've done your work, that you really understand the problems that you're facing, and not just, I'm stuck, please help. As a way to teach the concepts of programming without actually committing to a language, we decided to use a little game. It's called Lightbot. And Lightbot actually demonstrates a lot of how programming works, and it does so through explanations, through level changes. You actually make directions, you actually create functions, you demonstrate how recursion works, and you can see it as it actually happens. And that way, it gave us a chance so that if somebody walked into a class, a very basic, this is what programming is all about, they'd see the terms and go, oh yeah, I remember what that is. We wanted to talk about what testers look for and why they look for them, testing artifacts, what makes a solid test, a little bit about test design, not extremely deep, but enough to be able to explain how we got to where we got to. If we find a problem, what were the steps that got us there? Do we understand what the condition is that we're seeing? Why it isn't what we might want to see? And could we explain what we would expect to be there? And we also, to kind of close it out, gave perspectives from 3 testers. we modeled this after the Brad Paisley song, If I Could Write a Letter to Me. So if you're familiar with that song, that's kind of what these are. And the idea was it was meant to reach out to those who might be potential testers, ask them why they considered themselves good candidates for software testing, share the attributes they recognized in themselves, and some of the realities of what they were going to face. We also, the What is Context module, we put, actually for those who have ever been part of Henrik Anderson's Context-Driven Robots workshop, most of it is based off of it. Henrik was very considerate and said, yes, absolutely, please use it. Go ahead, make whatever modifications you need to for the group in question. And if you discover anything interesting, let me know so I can update my records. It was very gracious of him. And the idea was that we were going to go through and we were going to actually have a project that was scoped with some simple deliverables. They were going to work around making tests for them, and then the scope was going to change, or the actual environmental variables of the project was going to change, and they were going to see it in real time and watch it as it condensed down and get to the point to where they could say, okay, so what would work in this case certainly wouldn't work over here, or what might work in one environment I need to modify a little bit to make it relevant to something else. I thought that was a skill that we absolutely had to encourage very early. And how the web works is exactly what it sounds like. It's basic information on the HTTP protocol, what HTML is, what a script is, what send and response is. Testing on the web with traditional and mobile devices, very basic primer, and very basic reference on what the web is about, at least in its current state. We discussed with a few groups how they were going to use the material that were part of the trial, and the feedback was overall very positive. But the definite answer that we got back was, we want and need more. We need more than what we've got right now. It's a great start. It's good information. It's a good 1-2 week primer punch, but we need more than this. And we'll take whatever you can give us. So qualified success, fantastic. And we said, great, then what can we gear up to and do for year 2? So between year 1 and year 2, they decided to say, yeah, we could probably, that's when Code Academy kind of got a big boost in 2012, and so they decided that they would shift their focus a bit. The Lightbot was fine, but then this way, once they did the Lightbot module, they could go right over to Code Academy and just dig in there. Great. But what other modules and ideas could we do for the testing section? We were able to complete front to back 2 additional modules, and we also have 2 more that are still in development. We were hoping to get them done in time for the program. They didn't quite make it. We are definitely going to make sure that these are finished in time for 2014. The 2 that we did finish were what is the software development lifecycle and software testing lifecycle, and also a module on what is bias. The 2 that are still in development and that we want to be able to finish as soon as possible are what are bugs and bug reporting, and one that I got suggested to me just after the cutoff when I was at STPCon at the end of April this year. And James Pulley made an interesting observation, and he said, you've got these kids that are roughly 16, just getting into a lot of the science stuff. How many of them actually understand the scientific method? For that matter, how many adults actually understand the scientific method? And how could we use that information to help encourage those who want to be software testers be more focused and better understand what they're doing? So with that, we decided to dig forward. Software development and software test lifecycle module was basically what it sounds like. How is software developed? What phases of the process and how they different in various environments, and comparison of what are agile methods, what are traditional methods. We decided to put those in just so, of course, you're going to be in different environments, and we tried to make sure that we had a broad section. We do include the various models and where testing can be done, and to encourage to say as early as possible, wherever you can, there is testing that can be performed. Don't wait for somebody to say, okay, here's the product, now go test it. We really wanted to encourage them to say, how far back in the process can you go? And even in most models of software development lifecycle, there are opportunities where you can do good testing. The what is bias module was based on, saying what do we see versus what we think we see. We talked about a number of bias, situations that we find ourselves in. Definitely focused a bit on confirmation bias, that you see what you expect to see. If you are going to look for, if you're looking at a program with the mandate, make sure it works, you're going to find different things than if your mandate is find what is broken. Two very different mindsets will come up with two very different results. And of course, we also include inattentional blindness. No, I'm not going to play the video. You've all seen it, but of course, answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear? Anybody who doesn't get that, raise your hand. Okay, just a few. There's actually several famous videos that show that if you're focusing on one thing and you're trying to complete a task by focusing on that one thing, you can miss something else that's going on. And just do a Google search for moonwalking bear, and you'll see it. And we also focused on other various bias methods and how to step out of it, how to defocus, how to unbias, or as much as possible. We're working on a module right now about bugs and bug reporting. What are examples of good bugs versus bad bugs, and how we can make bug reports more effective, and how we can champion getting bugs fixed. And again, it's my personal view, and it's from doing BBST for a number of years now. I don't consider the measure of a software tester being how many bugs they find. I consider the measure of a software tester, a good software tester, being one who finds bugs, important bugs, and then champions their being fixed. And then, of course, as I said, what is the scientific method? Some have seen some of the writing that I've done recently where I've been talking about the idea that perhaps this should be treated as lesson 0. That no matter who comes in this program, they need to make sure they understand this. How we can use the scientific method and how it relates to a particular age group. And walking through the scientific method with a software testing scenario. And show where it does map to it. And also show where it might not be as applicable. You don't want to just say, use the scientific method, and if you use the scientific method, you're always going to be on a good path. No, not necessarily. So it's important to also show where it might lead you astray, not to use it. So year 2 is underway, ran it, and as I was getting the information for this talk together, I asked them for their feedback. I said, I was all primed. I was really excited. I was going to say, oh, let's hear it. Come on, it's going to be, last year it was great. This year it must be awesome, right? Well, they were a bit less positive this time around. Discovered that there is actually a very low completion rate of all the modules. There was a frustration with the way that it was delivered and the ability of accessing certain materials at certain times. Sometimes it had to be done, sometimes they had to go back and do so multiple times just to be able to get the content to complete it. For those of you, if you go to a website 4 times and you can't get the material that you want, what are you going to do? Skip, next. I can't say I blame them. We did have to say, and they scaled back the requirements and said, okay, but you must complete the what is testing module or you will not be eligible for even participating in the program. So we got compliance there, but unfortunately getting through, the people who got through all the material and finished all the material that we put together, much lower, very low, and that made me sad. So I started asking some questions. I said, okay, what was different? What, between year 1, which was really positive, and year 2, which was not so happy about it, what was different? First year participants were taught as a group through activities or with a direct mentor. Everybody that I talked to who did this program where there was a facilitator that worked with these people directly had really good and positive reviews, both of the material and of the approach. Those that were left to their own devices, that had to go and download the material themselves and study it themselves, they were the ones that were less enthused about it. And this makes a lot of sense now that I look back at it. Year one was only in 2 cities. And actually, most of the interns were located in New York City directly. So it was a very focused, hand-picked group. And again, there was a lot of attention placed on placing these people directly with companies and ensuring that they would have a good experience going through the pilot. This year it was expanded to many cities, and again, there was an emphasis on self-study. All right, so I was a little frustrated by this. Actually, saying I was a little frustrated by this is a big understatement. I was almost despondent. I thought that year two was almost, I really almost thought that we'd wasted our time. Here's where I'm saying this is the shareholder report part of this meeting. And I'm trying to sit here and say, am I about to deliver bad news, like we didn't meet our quarterly numbers? That kind of, that's actually how I felt gearing up for this. And then I stopped and I said, hold on, okay. What can we learn from this? What was going on? What is really happening here? Can we do something different? Maybe there is some different approaches that we can take. And so I gathered some objective reviewers and I said, go ahead, rip at it. It's community property, but I'm the spearhead, so I'll take it. I'm the one that's going to take, the criticism's going to fall on me, so let me have it. And let's see what we can do to change or fix or modify or even go a totally different approach. And John Hagar was hugely instrumental in helping do this review. He took every single module. He went online. He followed every link. He helped me figure out anything that was not in its right place, gave me thorough information on the state of the CK12 servers and where the content was or was not, and gave us a chance to go through and fix it. So, what were the results of the reviews, and what did we learn from it? There's too much taken for granted. And I'm going to say probably that's my fault as the curator and our fault just in general, because there are certain terms that we just feel like we know. We feel like they're obvious to us. We feel like they're things that are very basic. And so I used them without stopping to think, wait a minute. Could somebody who'd never been exposed to technology before understand what I was talking about? I asked a number of 16-year-olds, I said, hey, can you help me? Does this feel logical? Does it feel like it makes sense? And they all said, oh yeah, no, this is absolutely, I could follow it great. What did I do wrong? Well, I asked in my hometown of San Bruno. I asked around the area around Palo Alto. That's not our target audience. Those kids have been around technology most of their lives, fairly affluent communities, parents who work in the tech industry to begin with. They've grown up with this their whole lives. They could probably say most of these terms before they were 10 years old. And that was my mistake. I took for granted that it was simple, it was direct, it was basic information. Everybody should be able to understand it. I was wrong. Entry level was not entry level enough. There's more that we could do to make it more fundamental, more basic. Again, it comes back to too much taken for granted. It's just the things that we think are obvious, and I missed the boat on that. So what should we do about it? We should just, first off, establish a baseline vocabulary. Make sure that any word, if there's any possibility that any word could be misconstrued, misunderstood, or have an ambiguous meaning, we need a glossary for it. We need to make sure that that is something that people can go to and say, this is what it means, this is how it's used, and be very, very specific with any instructions that we give and any comments that we ask around any technical topics. Too many of the modules require facilitation. When we developed them, that was my anticipation, was that there would be a facilitator, at least at the company that was offering the internships, or through whoever was going to be offering the program. As we developed them, it became clear that there was more of an interest in spreading it out and making it be a self-study program. And that's something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around as to how do we take something that makes a lot of sense, is a lot of fun, and really engaging when you do it as a group activity and present it to somebody to read by itself. Henrik's context-driven robots scenario, when you run through it with a group of kids, man, they are so pumped by the time they get to the end of it. They are really excited as to watching how it happened. And then just imagine being alone, somebody sitting at a computer in a library, accessing it, and just reading it dry. I admit it. I was bummed by that. I thought, oh man, you're right. That's going to look awful. It's going to be very dry. It's going to be very boring in that respect, because they're not going to see the connections. They're not going to really understand the context. Oh, okay, it changes, so I change with it. Woohoo. And as I said, how can we focus on ways that individuals can work through these modules by themselves? I think that's going to be their focus, because if they really want to spread this out, we cannot take for granted that they're going to have a facilitator. We cannot take for granted that a group is going to work through the material. So it will need to be restructured, reconsidered for that one reader who downloads it online. How can we make it so it's engaging to them? More activities aimed at each topic section. Right now I've got basically a single approach, a test this, and then a let's talk about it. Needs to be more than that. More scenarios, more examples. I really did not want to make this into, say, a math workbook. I didn't want it to be something that people would just go, oh, really? Come on. You're going to make me go through 7 scenarios here. You're going to really make me walk through all of this. And they would lose interest. So I wanted to make it as focused as I possibly could. Note again, I is not just me. It's everybody who helped us put together the material and review it. How can we gauge progress? There are methods that are built into the platform to do so, but really what it gauges is that you completed that. I read this page, and then I moved on to the next one. Did you watch this video? Yes. That's about the level that the tools can provide us, short of my going in and putting in multiple choice exams. And remember, that was a decision that we made early on. I didn't really want to do that. Now, well, they have to reconsider that. Keep it simple, make it fun. If we think it's simple enough, we're probably wrong. If we think it's fun enough, we're probably wrong. We got some feedback from managers who actually implemented and worked with the SummerQAmp staff and gauged their progress and what they learned. And overall, they felt really good. They said they did learn quite a bit. They had other areas that they would like to see covered, that, better understanding of testing deeper than the stuff that we've got right now. How to document test cases, how to look for edge cases. 2 managers also requested experience with automation tools. Selenium, WebDriver. I'm wincing, I'm sorry. This is an opinion, and I'm putting it here and I'm sharing it. Again, this is shareholder meeting talk time. I personally think that with the group that we're aiming at, that requirement this soon is unrealistic. At least for an initial candidate. In 4 weeks, can we take somebody who has very little to no information about computers, operating systems, programming at all, and have them be able to go in for an internship where they're going to be expected to write automated test cases? Not impossible. Kid's motivated enough. Anything is possible. But I see that more as that would be something that somebody who's already gone through the program, has done an internship, is excited about it, and wants to return for year 2. That's where I see that focus being much more relevant, because they'll have a taste of what they do and say, yeah, no, I really want to do that. That would be awesome. And then we can focus on that. Or the company that's providing the internship could say, hey, would you be interested in focusing on automation? Here's the tools that we use. Let's give it a try. Better understanding of how the web works, CSS, JavaScript, HTML. They did make an emphasis. We do not expect them to be front-end developers, for which I'm happy. Again, to reiterate this, what is the goal of SummerQAmp? Who is it that we're serving? What is the purpose? Why did we take this on in the first place? This is the initial goal. The initial goal is for those who do not or would be very unlikely to have an opportunity to work in this industry because of lack of understanding or lack of materials, lack of educational opportunities, this is an avenue that we wanted to explore. SummerQAmp and AST partnered for it to make an opening salvo in this area. And over the course of 2 years, I think we've done some good stuff. I really do. So where do we go from here? Right now, we are reworking the modules, and we are exploring additional delivery methods. We're looking to break up more of these areas into standalone modules. Instead of having like a what is testing book, we'll break them out and be more specific. So that way we can focus on, hey, here's an activity, here's a concept, here's how you can apply it, here's a couple of options to try it out for yourself. Once you've completed them, answer a few questions, and then you get the next one, so that there's more granular understanding of what they actually understand. Emphasis on completion relevant to both individuals and to groups. So if it's facilitated, you're going to do it one way. You'll make it much more efficient. You'll pull it together and work with the group to see what their understanding is. Again, a way to be able to have an individual all by themselves. How do they gauge their progress? How do they know what they're doing? We also want to give the opportunity for potential employers to decide what is relevant to them. If they decide that they don't want certain information to be used, they can make that choice. They can say, yeah, we like 4 out of the 5 modules. We're just not going to worry about this one. We'll teach that on site. Or, we don't have to require them. Say, you must teach this A to Z. If you decide that L just isn't relevant to you, okay, that's your choice. We want to broaden the topics that are offered. Some of the considerations are, how do we focus on security? Again, for the target audience. How do we focus on performance? How can we make programming and automation accessible? And, operations and administration. How do you, do the work of a systems administrator? What do they do? What are the roles that they do? How can you help them with it? How can you as an intern, go into a lab and actually do the work necessary to set up machines, do the administration work necessary? We're also interested in sharing with other training initiatives or broadening the scope of what we offer. One of the groups that we are already talking to and actively working with is Perscalis, which is an initiative that is partly it's aimed at returning veterans and other, what I like to refer to as retraining opportunities for those who have worked in a career for a while and they've decided they want to make a change. And Perscalis is an example of a program that allows them to do that. And we're looking to see if we can work with them and also have them use the materials. They're using the rapid software testing, live materials now. And this could also be a supplement to that. So, in conclusion, we've got a good start, but I think we still got a long way to go. And when I say we, I mean we. It's a community effort. Those who have participated in this, I am extremely grateful for the material that you've provided, for the reviews that you've done, for checking on my typos and my spelling and the construction of what we've made so far. I hope I can call on you again. All the materials that we're making, as I said, it's a community initiative. It's also an open source initiative. That was one of the requirements that we made when we said we would offer this, is that this is not going to be something that can be packaged up, proprietized, and sold. That's the one requirement that we make. If the company decides they want to bring this material in, and if they want to completely restructure it and do something else with it, okay, that's fine. Please, realize we made this material, and we made it open source, and for everybody to have access to it, respect that. Plain and simple, we need your ideas. We need your feedback. We want this to be more than just for SummerQAmp. We want to be able to make these initiatives offered to as many people as they could be relevant to. And this is a project that can go on for a very long time. It really could. That's one of the big lessons that I took out of this. Didn't mention it in the slides. But I will admit, I underestimated just how challenging it is to develop training material that is streamlined, that is both simplified but effective, and something that a number of people can get in a number of different contexts. I'm not even sure I've got it right. I'm not claiming that I've got it right. And I want to see if we can do better, and here, me especially. I want to see what we're missing. Did we miss the mark on something? Did we completely miss the target? If so, how can we bring it back and get closer to it? And how can we do better? How can we make this so it's more compelling, easier for people to use, something that there will be a higher success rate in completing everything? And that could come down to, are we using the right platform? Are we partnering with the right companies? Do we have the best model for delivery? Do we know for a fact that we want to go single person, or we want to go facilitated group, or most likely both? But what can we do if we know ahead of time who wants which option? We can prioritize from there. And that's what I've got. That's the end of my shareholders meeting, so to speak. And yes, it is open season, and please, fire away. Thank you. All right. And I desperately need some water.
For this one, we had a question from the internet come in. How do you see other societies building on this, and how can it be expanded out to other countries in the world?
Very good question. Personally, actually, that's exactly what I would like to see happen. I would like to have this be a model that could be used by anyone, any culture, any place. I don't know if I have the direct answer right now for, what I'm trying to think back to this. I'm thinking back to, like, for example, when you look at the, one laptop per child program, or some of the experiments that were done where a computer kiosk was left inside of a village, and it was just left there. And people could go up and they could touch it, use it, play it, and within 6 months you came back and street kids who had no technical knowledge whatsoever, were actively programming the system, had taught themselves considerable English or other languages, and it's just left to their own devices, they were able to do amazing things. How can we make this work in that environment? First off, I would love to see it work there, and I want to be able to develop it for that. I'm not prepared to answer it right now. I honestly I don't know. It's too soon to tell. I'd like to see how well we do here and see what the success rate is here first. But absolutely, I would love to see this be a model that can be transferred all over the world into any culture and be a success. And that might be extremely ambitious, but that would be my hope.
51.
So in getting feedback from employers and those types of things, is there any concern is that in developing this curriculum that we turn out testers the kind of testers we don't want them to become? So how as an organization in being involved, how does AST communicate those values and principles through our curriculum while preparing these the students to go into environments that may have a much more traditional, less context-driven philosophy?
It's a good question. Well, the materials that we have do have a lot of reference and do mention use of context-driven principles. It's right in there. I don't spell it out and say this is a context-driven manifesto. That's not what I'm trying to do with this. And again, we as a body who curated the material and put together the modules that we did, made a conscious decision to use context-driven techniques in the examples, use them in the directions and the guidance that we gave as part of the discussion material, but we didn't specifically say you have to do it this way. If you are not context-driven, then therefore you lose. That's not going to help us. I think it's much better to bake it into the content that we provide them, let them work through. And that's one of the reasons why I put James' example as the very first thing they see. I don't want to talk to you about what testing is. I don't want to define a test case to you. I don't want to define what you want to do. I want you to feel what exploratory testing is like from minute one. I want you to actually get in there and get excited about what you're doing. Talk to your friends about it. Say, hey, check this out. Let's see if you can figure this out. How quickly can you decide what this machine is doing? Get them pumped. Get them excited. Let them see what the value of and how exploratory testing actually feels. Once you've got that, then when you start, if somebody starts to say, well, we want to define what a test case is and how it's structured, and here's script one, and walk it through, they're already going to have kind of a, but isn't this way so much more effective? That's what I'm hoping we can do with this. The simple truth is, if somebody goes to a company and that company wants to create a factory tester out of one of these interns, we cannot stop that. We can definitely ask the interns what their experience was. We can find out feedback from them as to how did this go for you? How did you feel about working with this company? What were the things they emphasized? How did you feel that the training that we gave in these modules prepared you for that? Is it on the mark, near the mark, so far off the mark it was completely irrelevant? That's vital. And honestly, right now, the sample set that we have and that we've discussed and that we've reviewed, it's too small to tell how much of that is going on. For the most part, it seems the companies that have got the interns have said they're great. It's really terrific. They're coming in with some great information off the bat. It helps us a lot. But we haven't gotten to the point and gotten granular saying, so have they completely subverted what we were trying to teach? But I'd like to know that. Good question, and I think that's definitely worth following up on. Thank you.
This is actually a kind of a follow-up on that, or it kind of branches off on it. And it's like an example and I guess a question that follows it. The place that I work at, it's a marketing and design agency, and the president, the founder of the company, is real big on bringing in college students to come in and see the agency, see everything that we do, see the designers and the art directors and the developers and so on. And he'll have students come in. They're at local universities and stuff, and they'll come in as a group, and there's talks and discussions and everything. But the idea is that this is what they can aspire to after they finish their education, after they go to their 2-year art schools or 4-year universities or so on. Is there anything? I guess what is the next step for the interns in this program? Are they presented with ideas about what they can do as a career, as a stepping stone for this? And I don't want to use that gateway drug reference. That was just awful.
Thank you.
That was bad.
But to be fair to Smitaki, I got I understood what he was trying to say, and I don't know if that is actually Steve's words or if that was the original author of the article's words. I'm just saying that was but you're right. That gave me a really solid reaction to it. I'm stepping on what you're saying.
Well, that's okay. I think that the question is, what's presented to them as like a next step? Okay, they complete this internship. What can they do next? If it's like 16 to 20, 24 or whatever, some of them are in school, some of them are still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
is it kind of presented to them like you can go to school for this, you can do this, you can work for this agency or company or whoever? How is that presented to them?
This is probably a better question for SummerQAmp itself. Honestly, you can say it's a little out of the scope of what I've been working on, but I think I could tell you what I would like to see us do. And when I say us, in this collaboration between SummerQAmp and AST, what I would like to see. I would like to see there be a definite path, if you will. If you work as a SummerQAmp intern and you do well and you get good reviews, I would love to see that company say, fantastic, thank you. I'd like to speak with you again next year. You know, if you go through the second phase of this program, or you go to school and focus on this or this or this, I would like to actually make sure you're on the first of the list of the people that I talk to. I'd love to have you come back, and I'd love to, have you go in different directions. If you want to focus on performance, if you want to focus on automation, if you want to focus on, again, doing more and deeper and more interesting exploratory testing with larger and more complex systems. What I don't want it to be is I don't want it to be a simple, hey, here's a 4-week program, check up these boxes, go do this internship, congratulations, you now have something on your resume, and we never hear from them again. That I absolutely don't want to see happen. I would like to actually see if we can, I hate using the word track, it sounds bad, but I would like to basically treat this like a relationship with these students. I would like to find out, hey, how did this work for you? Are you interested in doing this? Some might say, yeah, you know what, I think that testing's interesting, I'm really happy to have learned it, but I'm more interested in graphic design. Well, fantastic. Go study graphic design. But now you've actually got a core knowledge and approach to software testing that can follow you in whatever career you choose. Software testing skills are a philosophy and a family of philosophies all unto themselves. I always struggle when I make this comparison of software testing and philosophy because it's kind of a multi-headed hydra, and I can easily get lost in the analogies I make, so I'm going to stop before I embarrass myself. But seriously, it informs a lot of things. When you start to think like a tester, when you start to think scientifically, philosophically, when you start to break problems down, when you start to look for what might not be working in something, it affects everything you do going forward. And for some of us, it might be so powerful an impulse that we say, hey, I'd like to do more software testing. So I would definitely like to see us branch out and have, first year, here's like the 3 main items we want you to cover, the 30 things you need to do. Second year, okay, now you get to specialize. What are you interested in? Do you want to learn about programming? Do you want to get in depth with it? Do you want to learn a procedural or an object? And the suggestion that was given to me, and I like it actually, is if you want to learn about programming, learn 2 languages. Doesn't matter what 2, but learn 2 languages. One of them should be procedural, one of them should be object-oriented. So you can compare the 2 and understand where they're good or bad in different circumstances and contexts. From there, start working with automation tools. If you want to do unit test level tools, great. If you want to use Selenium or WebDriver or Robot Framework or some other keyword-driven tool that the company provides, great, that's fine. But the idea is you have a path, and you have the ability to keep moving forward, learn more, get more engaged, and that company, based on if you do really good work with them, and based on us giving really good information that helps them do really good work, it's a self-feeding loop. And I want to be able to see it grow and continue going. I will be honest, it's going to be quite a while before unless a lot of people decide to jump in and help make that happen, it's a long reach goal.
I just want to recap the list for the topics. I have 60, 98, 62, 40, and 85. So, any new topics? 60?
Creating exercises that can be run independently as opposed to creating exercises that can be run with heavy facilitation and direct feedback seems extremely difficult.
You are correct.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you did that and how you vetted the exercises and how that worked out for you?
Well, actually, quite a few of the exercises that I put together were inspired, not, a lot of them were actually inspired by actual weekend testing sessions that we did. A lot of the exercises were built out from going back and looking at which things did people struggle with, we're talking regular testers who actively participate in these. Which ones were really difficult to approach? Which ones seemed easier? Which ones seemed more, familiar? Which could help us explain a concept? And like Lightbot, for example, if we had not done a weekend testing session on that exact application, and tried it out and worked at it and said, man, this would be a really awesome way to actually teach somebody programming, and got a fair amount of feedback from a lot of people, I might have not even considered it. But that's how I came up with that particular example. Black box machines, again, I'd seen over and over again, James Lindsay's feedback that he had from the classes that he taught and how people responded to it, and from different ages. So that was what encouraged me to do that again. The context-driven robots one, yeah, that is how I would teach that, or how I would break that down into a module that an individual would be able to do and actually walk through each step and consider it and get the same impact. I'm not entirely sure how to do that. I'd like to. I think it would be a great challenge. But at this moment, I'll be frank, I'm not sure. But most of the things that I come across, I just try to see, can I, with a reasonable amount of focus and effort, put something together, get access to an app, run it, perform an exercise on it, reach a reasonable completion state, and have a fairly good feeling that whatever I put in as an item is going to be there, 3 to 6 months from now? Or does it make sense for us, because most of the stuff is applications or programs that are available online right now. That's a double-edged sword. It's great because it's immediately available. It can be a bummer because 6 months from now, like we found out, oh yeah, that app that you used for that example, yeah, it's not there anymore. And so I had to rework it. So it might make sense for us to actually look to say, what can we program together? What kind of apps can we put together specifically for this to make as exercises and make them available? Is it challenging? Yeah, you bet.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'm working for an education institution, so this all sounds very familiar to me in a lot of ways. Sorry, is that better? Completion rates for individualized online courses are bad. So that, I don't know, you're not the only one struggling with that, and it might be worth looking at what online institutions are doing towards that. I know that they've been finding these MOOCs are a big thing now, the massive online open courses, and they've had fantastically bad completion rates for the most part. And those are big names like MIT and Harvard or whatever doing this stuff, right? So you're not alone.
We are aware of that.
That's, I guess, an avenue, if you haven't looked at, you could. Just two other quick things that you don't have to address them all. I just want to get them down there. Course design, I think you're going in the right direction with that. It sounds really good. I know there's people that professionally worry about that kind of thing. So if you're making progress there, that's a good thing, and it won't be quick. And the final thing was we've started building basic skill training into some of our coursework, because we found a lot of people were dropping out because they were missing critical skills, mostly English and stuff like that. So you have people in first-year university courses that couldn't punctuate properly, and they're not going to come to you and tell you about it, especially in an individualized setting. They're going to drop out. So if you can find missing competencies and target those, that might be another really strong approach. So I think that's enough. But yeah, there you go.
Okay, absolutely. It was the biggest concern that we had, was the fact that when it was going to be branched out to be individual, it's like, well, if you don't complete the material, you can't be part of the program. And I guess for a number of kids, they said, well, if I can't complete the material, I'm not going to be part of the program. Whatever. See ya. And that's It's frustrating, but yeah, it's life, and it's what people do, and they self-select, and those that have the tenacity to work through and finish everything, probably are going to be the ones that are going to do just fine, and probably would have done just fine even if we didn't have the program there to begin with. How we are going to be able to put together a way to determine, missing competencies and such, it really is going to come down to, are we using the right platform? I mean, CK12 does a number of things quite well, and there are a number of things that we struggle with when we try to work with it. Is it the correct platform for all purposes? Maybe not. It might be a good platform if we choose to construct the material for work this item, finish this task, fill in these pieces of information, and if you have enough that are right, you get a gate opened, you get a gamification button, a thumbs up, whatever, and move on to the next thing. Again, I will be blunt here, and I am not an academic. I am a workaday tester, and I'm darn proud of that fact. I am a practitioner, and my goal was to focus on how can practitioners share their information, give of their insights. And I had to take kind of a crash course in what does it take to make an online course that is effective, that works. And there was quite a bit of redoing to even make the very first module that we did, which was very fundamental information. And I think we ended up making about 25 revisions of that first module, and it's only got 10 chapters to it. It's a small, I did not want to make it be a slog. I wanted it to be something they would be engaged in. I wanted it to be something that they would consider fun. Try to put some humor in it so that they could enjoy the process with it and make it personal. That's why the letters to me section was, I got some good feedback on it. Some people might have thought it was corny. Maybe we'll keep it, maybe we won't. But yeah, it was really, really a challenge to put together what we did. And part of me is a little anxious about, okay, we're going to have to rework a lot of this stuff, and we might need to find another way of delivering that. Maybe the facilitated material uses a whole different model. Maybe we focus on using that one platform just for the individuals who will not be working with anybody else, and then we can go a whole different avenue as to how we want to put it together. I may have to put quizzes in them. I admit it's something that there's a benefit to having them there, there's a disadvantage to having them there. I just didn't want it to be the gateway. I didn't want it to be, if you don't pass these quizzes and answer the exact questions the way that we ask you to answer them, you don't pass, and therefore you can't continue. That's just a philosophical thing for me.
Anne Marie has a follow-up.
Thanks, Michael, for sharing this. I've been teaching at the University of Technology in Sydney, software testing for the last 6 months, and one of the biggest things that I've noticed about, I'm talking about teaching software testing, and they're older than 16, but it's the communication, and that's that you touched on that ability to punctuation, grammar. These are really basic things. I have a lot of the students come from overseas and find it really hard to communicate. And in software testing, this is so important to be able to express your ideas and give credible bug reporting. So I just wondered if you touched on that in your course, or...
We have touched on, I haven't touched on it from the perspective of the mechanics of language, in the sense. I have focused on it, like we're in the process of what we're doing for bug reporting. I have focused on being clear, making sure that your steps are easy to follow, that your language is specific, but have we focused on, and making sure that it's readable. So we emphasize those points. Having said that, we have not actually said, and by the way, here's where commas are correctly used, and here's how you construct a proper paragraph, and here's where you use ing versus ed versus... No, we don't have that in there. And again, maybe that's part of what we need to consider if we want to make this, if we want to broaden it. Maybe there's a 0.1 lesson that we need to make sure of, and that's how to communicate effectively, right along with the scientific method. How do you make sure that the results you find you can communicate to another individual, have them understand it, and if you end up getting in a debate about what it means, can you defend your reasoning? You know, yeah, I think those are critically important, and I'm not exactly sure how much we want to get into in that. Do we want to actually make that part of the curriculum? We can certainly visit it as a possibility. We can certainly make a focus on what clear communication looks like, how you would structure a proper bug report, for example, and how not to go off the deep end trying to describe it. Yeah, honestly, again, I'm not sure what I would put in and how, but it's good information, and I thank you for the unexpected but very interesting tangent.
So we've got 2 more on this topic, and then I've got 3 more new threads, 62, 40, 85, and 92. Time's starting to get a little bit short. We can carry over, but I'm going to attempt to get everybody's question in. So if we can tighten up the exchange, that'll
Sure.
give everybody a chance.
In other words, Michael, stop talking. I know, I'm sponsoring it. I'm one of, not me. There's a bunch of people on it, but yes.
I'll keep it real brief then. I just wanted to follow up. I understand the hesitation about quizzes. I know, or at least I think I know where some of that may come from with it being multiple choice questions. I just wanted to throw in there from a BBST perspective that I found that quizzes for learning versus for assessment can be helpful, and I think that's probably where you're thinking. Maybe
It's exactly
it.
that was.
I can learn
yeah.
even when I answer something wrong, and that can still be helpful to me.
Yeah. I will admit that the BBST quiz trauma, everybody's all the people who've been in BBST are laughing. That's for those on the internet. A lot of the quizzes we use in BBST, it takes a real. I mean, full-grown adults throw temper tantrums because they don't get a good grade on their quizzes in these classes. I've seen it a lot of times. And I will admit that part of me was really leery about saying, do I want to try that approach? And I would actually say, if I was going to put a quiz in, I don't know if I would put a quiz quite as involved as the BBST ones are, with the 10 answers and, the point that you can't guess. You either have to know it or you don't, or you have at least a reasoning for it. I may have to do it, and if I do actually put a quiz in, I probably would lean more towards that BBST approach rather than a 3 or 4 example multiple choice that you can guess and get right a fair amount of the time because of the context of the examples.
Okay, same thread follow-up here.
Yep.
Hi there. So I've had a unique opportunity to work and actually do online schooling from both a QA perspective and testing an online learning environment, as well as actually going to school currently in one. And one of the things so in terms of using quizzes for types of assessment, there's also another opportunity to do more of an experiential kind of project assessment where instead of grading, instead of having it be question after question after question, it's a certain project or a task that you give them, and then they're graded based on certain competencies that they're supposed to learn from that project. So that might be another option as well, instead of having it be, question after question of just black and white answers and multiple select, having it be a little bit more experiential.
Yeah. I would, yeah.
Topic?
Sorry, we got 3 minutes.
Okay. I'll just say, that sounds like a great idea. I like it. Let's talk afterwards.
I'm going to be real quick. I just wanted to ask, what's the focus in the courses on heuristics? It's something that, as far as I've seen, it seems to resonate with people new to testing in particular, and especially people who are in a more creative mindset like you would be at 16.
We start out with heuristics in the what is testing. We focus on it at a very basic level. Hiccups is the core for it. so that they can understand how to use it. The idea of saying that something is inconsistent with something else actually really does resonate with even people who've never tested before at all. If we use something that's going into details about oracles and what makes a good oracle and what doesn't can get really, really long-winded. But when you say, this isn't consistent because I use one product and it acts this way, and I use another product and it acts totally different, there's an inconsistency here. Should I explore that? That does resonate, and that is something that we focus on right up front, and it's something that is part of the what is testing module.
Hi. It struck me as you were talking about some of the problems that you encountered, like evaluating student progress, students coming from different backgrounds. Should I mark people down for having punctuation errors or spelling errors or things like that? But these are like, what's that? Oh, sorry. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
So anyway, the problems that you seem to be encountering are part of the regular problem domain of being a high school teacher.
Oh yeah.
And so I guess my question is, are you engaging or have you thought about engaging high school teachers or high school education experts to help you develop their curriculum?
It was one of the things that in the process of the review and going through and trying to restructure the material, that's absolutely on the top of my list. And it is something that I do want to make sure that we focus on. I've worked with those who have been available to work with me, basically, and I'm grateful to everybody who has given me the opportunity to help bring this stuff out. And yes, I would, in a heartbeat, if there are those who are actively engaged as high school instructors who will be willing to participate in this and help us get over that hurdle, definitely, absolutely. I've informally, shared this information with a few of my friends who teach school, some who teach in college, some who teach in intermediate school because they're who I happen to know, and they've given me some feedback. I would love to have a more formalized, structured feedback with somebody who would be willing to give the time to do that.
Okay.